No, I didn't come to children. I came to, this is the first time I ever went to America.
Prince Rainier III of Monaco had everything a man could ever want. He was rich and powerful and ruled over one of the most luxurious places on earth. But his life completely changed when he married Hollywood superstar Grace Kelly. While the world thought it was a perfect fairy tale, the marriage was actually full of explosive fights and hidden drama. It got so bad that Prince Rainier later admitted he deeply regretted marrying her. So, why did the prince say he regretted marrying Grace Kelly? What really happened behind closed doors? Join us as we uncover the shocking truth behind royalty's most famous couple, the boy in the golden cage, inside Rainier's messy childhood. Long before the explosive drama, the shattered illusions, and the secret regrets of his marriage to Grace Kelly, Prince Rainier III was just a boy trapped in a golden cage, inheriting a legacy of scandal and a throne on the brink of ruin. His story began on May 31, 1923. Rainier's birth was a historic milestone. He was the first native-born prince to enter the family in over 150 years. But behind the palace gates, his family tree was a mess of secrets. His mother, Princess Charlotte, was actually the secret child of a royal love affair, hastily adopted just so the family line wouldn't die out. She married a half-French, half-Mexican count who had to completely change his identity and last name to Grimaldi just to fit into the royal court. This forced fairy tale quickly turned toxic, and by the time Rainier was only 10 years old, his parents' messy divorce tore his world apart. To escape the bitter fighting at home, Rainier was packed off to elite boarding schools across Europe. He spent his youth moving from the strict, foggy classrooms of England to the ultra-exclusive mountains of Switzerland before finally heading to France for college. Then a massive bombshell dropped. On the eve of his 21st birthday, his mother officially threw up her hands and surrendered her rights to the throne, suddenly pushing young Rainier directly into the spotlight as the sole heir to Monaco. But before he would ever wear a crown, Rainier chose to prove his mettle on the bloody battlefields of World War II. He joined the Free French Army, fighting on the front lines against Nazi Germany. His raw courage under fire earned him prestigious military medals and the respect of his countrymen, transforming the sheltered royal into a genuine war hero. When his grandfather passed away in 1949, 25-year-old Rainier officially became the sovereign prince of Monaco. But the kingdom he inherited was far from a paradise. The royal treasury was bone dry, and Monaco's reputation was in the gutter, mostly because Rainier's own mother had scandalously taken a notorious jewel thief as her lover. To make matters worse, wealthy Europeans were completely broke after the war, meaning the high rollers had stopped coming to Monaco's famous casinos. Rainier knew he had to act fast to save his country from total bankruptcy. He came up with a brilliant, aggressive plan to completely reinvent Monaco, turning it into a tax haven, a luxury real estate hotspot, and a dream destination for the global elite. However, his grand vision sparked a brutal turf war with Aristotle Onassis, a ruthless Greek shipping tycoon who had bought up most of Monaco's businesses and wanted to keep the island as a cheap gambling playground. Rainier refused to be bullied, eventually outmaneuvering the billionaire to take back full control of his country. The road was incredibly rocky, filled with sudden bank failures and political rebellions that threatened his rule. In a bold move to modernize his country and stop a coup, Rainier did the unthinkable. He willingly signed away his absolute power, creating a new constitution that allowed regular citizens to help run the government. By the time he closed his eyes for the last time, Rainier had successfully engineered a miracle, transforming a broke, scandalous strip of land into the ultimate billionaire's playground. He went down in history as one of the longest reigning monarchs in Europe, a man who conquered the ruthless worlds of war, business, and politics, only to find his greatest defeat waiting for him at home behind the closed doors of a loveless marriage. But long before the bitterness settled in, their union was hailed as the romance of the century. The path to that fateful altar began across the Atlantic, where an ambitious young American girl was already busy conquering a different kind of kingdom. The Philadelphia Ambition, inside Grace Kelly's childhood royal prophecy. In the glamorous, sun-drenched world of the 1950s, Grace Kelly lived the exact kind of life that every young girl dreamed of. Born in 1929 into a wealthy upper-class family in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, she seemed to have every advantage from the very start. Her father was a self-made millionaire who built an empire from the ground up, while her mother was a respected athletics instructor at the University of Pennsylvania. Grace was beautiful, wealthy, and naturally theatrical. In fact, she was so captivated by grandeur from a young age that she once confidently turned to her sister, Peggy, and made a bold declaration, "One day, I'm going to be a princess." By the mid-1950s, that childhood dream was well on its way to coming true, though through a different kind of royalty. Grace had taken Hollywood by storm, quickly becoming one of the most celebrated silver screen stars in the world and even locking down a prestigious Academy Award win. In 1955, her soaring career took her across the Atlantic to the dazzling Cannes Film Festival in France. It was during this fateful trip that she was introduced to Prince Rainier III, the handsome and powerful ruler of Monaco. After a whirlwind romance that captured the imagination of the entire globe, the pair officially tied the knot. On paper, Grace had just received the ultimate, real-life fairy tale ending. She was no longer just Hollywood royalty, she was the actual Princess of Monaco. But was married life behind palace doors truly as luxurious and perfect as it looked from the outside? According to those who knew her best, the reality was far more tragic. J. Randy Taraborelli, the author of the explosive biography Once Upon a Time, revealed that the public perception of Grace's life was a complete illusion. While the world looked at her and saw a glamorous, untouchable celebrity who possessed everything a woman could ever want, the truth was that she spent the vast majority of her life struggling through immense personal turmoil. To understand how this shining fairy tale completely fell apart, we have to pull back the velvet curtains and look at the complicated, heartbroken reality of Grace Kelly's marriage. The cracks in the fairy tale actually started before Grace ever set foot in Monaco. When she first met Prince Rainier in 1955, she wasn't a single woman looking for love. She was actually already engaged to someone else, the famous and dashing fashion designer Oleg Cassini. During her trip to the Cannes Film Festival, Grace had agreed to take part in a high-profile magazine cover shoot with Prince Rainier. The shoot required her to take a quick detour to the stunning Prince's Palace of Monaco before rushing back to Cannes. The meeting was brief, but the spark was undeniable. Her close friend, Gone with the Wind star Olivia de Havilland, later recalled that when Grace returned from the palace, she seemed completely swept away, describing her as being in a total state of enchantment. But back home in America, a heartbroken Oleg Cassini saw right through the sudden shift in his fiancée's affections. Private love letters discovered decades later at an auction proved that Grace truly had been deeply in love with Cassini. So, why did she throw it all away for a foreign prince? Cassini himself gave a brutally honest explanation when Grace finally decided to break off their engagement. He looked at her and said, "One of the reasons I believe you're marrying this man is because this is the best script that you ever received in your life." Grace took the role, but she spent years wondering if she had made the worst mistake of her life. In a candid moment with her close friend, Charlotte Winston, Grace openly admitted that her fairy tale marriage wasn't entirely her own choice. She confessed, "Do you realize if my mother hadn't been so difficult about Oleg Cassini, I probably would have married him? That one decision changed my entire future." While the public viewed the union between the Hollywood star and the European prince as a magical, spontaneous romance, behind the scenes, it functioned much more like an arranged political marriage. Both parties had immense hidden motives, and Prince Rainier, in particular, had everything to lose if he didn't find a wife quickly. At the time, Monaco was bound by a strict centuries-old independence agreement with its powerful neighbor, France. The law stated that if the ruling Grimaldi royal family failed to produce a legitimate heir to the throne, the sovereign city-state of Monaco would automatically lose its independence and revert back to French control. Before meeting Grace, Rainier had been in a serious relationship with a French actress, but she was unable to have children. Desperate to save his country, Rainier put Grace through a humiliating physical examination before their engagement was even finalized, just to ensure that she could bear the children Monaco so desperately needed. Once she passed the medical test, the financial negotiations began. Rainier's royal treasury was practically empty, so Grace's father was forced to pay a staggering $2 million dowry just for the privilege of marrying his daughter into royalty. After a mere 2 weeks of actual courting, Rainier officially popped the question. To make matters even more unromantic, the entire matchmaker scheme had been cooked up by the ruthless Greek shipping tycoon, Aristotle Onassis, who owned massive amounts of property in Monaco. Onassis knew that Monaco's gambling economy was dying, and he gave Rainier a cold piece of business advice, telling him the right bride could do for Monaco's tourism what the coronation of Queen Elizabeth did for Great Britain. Grace wasn't just a bride, she was a marketing strategy. When the wedding day finally arrived in 1956, it wasn't a peaceful celebration of love. It was an absolute media circus. The palace grounds were completely overrun by nearly 2,000 aggressive reporters, photographers, and camera crews. One of Grace's bridesmaids, Mari Rambo, remembered looking around in shock, realizing there were actually more press members in attendance than actual wedding guests. To maximize the publicity, MGM Studios filmed the entire ceremony and broadcast it live to over 30 million viewers across Europe. For the rest of the world, the lavish event was the ultimate symbol of 1950s prosperity and storybook romance. Decades later, their son, Prince Albert, reflected on the massive cultural impact of the wedding, noting how it left an unimaginable mark on people all around the world. But inside the gorgeous wedding dress, Grace was absolutely miserable. The glittering spectacle that captivated millions was, in reality, a deeply suffocating experience. The intense scrutiny of that day set the stage for a traumatic introduction to royal life, completely overshadowing the vibrant freedom she had once enjoyed as Hollywood's brightest star. The Carnival of the Century, inside the overwhelming, traumatic 1956 wedding ordeal. While history books call it the wedding of the century, Grace herself bitterly joked to friends that it was actually the carnival of the century. The non-stop noise, the flashing cameras, and the crushing pressure left the newlyweds completely traumatized. Prince Albert later confirmed that his mother found the entire ordeal incredibly overwhelming. In fact, on the very first night of their highly anticipated honeymoon, both Grace and Rainier were so thoroughly exhausted and emotionally drained that they simply bypassed any romance and fell fast asleep. Before moving to Monaco, Grace enjoyed a spectacular, fast-paced social life in Tinseltown. She had a lucrative 7-year contract with MGM, and she had formed a deep bond with the legendary director Alfred Hitchcock, who served as her trusted mentor and closest artistic protector. But the moment she became a princess, that vibrant, joyful world was instantly wiped away. Grace desperately tried to hold on to her past, frequently inviting her famous A-list Hollywood friends to visit her at the palace and attend formal royal functions. But whenever her old friends would encourage Grace to let her hair down and have some fun, Prince Rainier would visibly cringe with disgust. The strict palace staff completely agreed with the prince. Grace's own lady-in-waiting, Madge TV Faucon, complained that the loose, familiar behavior of these American actors completely destroyed the careful, rigid staging and protocol that the royal court had spent centuries building around the prince and princess. Grace was forced to become a stranger to her own friends, a heartbreak that stayed with her until her final days. In 1982, the very same year she tragically died, she gave a bittersweet interview to ABC's 2020, looking back on her life and pointedly stating, "My friends are very important to me." The hardest pill for Grace to swallow was the total realization that her new title meant she had to completely abandon her greatest passion in life, acting. She had dreamed of performing since she was a little girl, and the creative itch never truly left her soul. In a raw interview with the Los Angeles Times in 1964, she confessed, "I miss acting. Once you're bitten by the acting bug, you never really get over it." Unfortunately, Prince Rainier had absolutely no sympathy for his wife's artistic heartbreak. He fiercely disapproved of her ever returning to the silver screen, going so far as to completely ban all of her Hollywood movies from being shown anywhere inside the borders of Monaco. He bluntly told the global press, "I don't want my wife to work." Rainier's emotional coldness extended to everything Grace tried to do to express herself. When she began putting on annual poetry readings just to have some sort of creative outlet, Rainier stubbornly refused to attend them for years. Her biographer, James Spada, noted that Rainier was fundamentally a deeply cold, emotionally ungiving person who refused to support his wife's spirit. The ultimate heartbreak occurred in 1962 when Alfred Hitchcock offered Grace the starring role in his upcoming psychological thriller, Marnie. Grace was thrilled and desperately wanted to take the part, but the announcement sparked a massive wave of fury. The traditional citizens of Monaco were deeply offended by the idea of their princess playing a thief on a Hollywood screen. One local saleswoman spoke for the country when she told a reporter, "I could no longer have respected her if she'd gone to Hollywood, and our country would have lost prestige." Crushed by the immense public backlash and her husband's intense disapproval, Grace was forced to drop out of the project, effectively killing her last chance at a Hollywood comeback. Realizing that she was permanently trapped in her royal role, Grace tried her best to approach her duties as a princess with the exact same discipline, culture, and grace that she had once brought to her acting career. She put on a brave face for the public, but behind closed doors, she was suffocating. Finally, in the mid-1970s, a surprising lifeline emerged from the ashes of her old life. Her former Hollywood agent, Jay Cantor, contacted her with an unprecedented business proposition. 20th Century Fox wanted Grace to become the very first woman to ever serve on their corporate board of directors. To Cantor's utter amazement, the princess accepted the corporate job immediately. On paper, Grace performed standard board member duties, reviewing major studio budgets and looking after stockholder positions. But in reality, the job had nothing to do with corporate business and everything to do with survival. Because the board meetings required her to travel directly to Los Angeles or New York, the position gave her a legitimate, unarguable reason to leave the stifling palace behind. She privately admitted to Cantor that the corporate board meetings were a literal gift from heaven. It wasn't about the money or the status. As Grace herself later explained, the job was her only escape, joyfully noting, "It gets me away from Monaco at least 4 times a year." But the need to escape wasn't just driven by the suffocating weight of royal protocol. The most painful truth of Grace's new life lay in the collapse of her private world, where the illusion of a storybook marriage quickly shattered into a reality of distance and betrayal. Cheating on day 1. Inside Prince Rainier's shocking honeymoon betrayals, behind the dazzling picture-perfect smiles that Prince Rainier III and Grace Kelly flashed for the cameras, their marriage was a complicated web of secrets, loneliness, and deep romantic betrayal. The public loved the fairy tale, but once the camera shutters stopped, the couple stepped into an emotional war zone. The biggest shocker of all? The cheating started almost immediately. According to celebrity biographer Wendy Lee, Prince Rainier couldn't even stay faithful through the honeymoon phase. Within a mere month of saying "I do," the prince was already involved with at least 3 other women. Rainier's inner circle was filled with questionable characters, and Grace was left feeling deeply humiliated and intensely unhappy in her new home. But the former Hollywood queen wasn't about to suffer in total silence. Grace eventually confided the heartbreaking truth to her personal hairstylist, confessing, "I know my husband has affairs with other women. That's very frustrating to me and makes me very unhappy." Frustrated and lonely, Grace decided to play Rainier at his own game. She reportedly turned back to the arms of her former Hollywood flames, including legendary bad boys Marlon Brando and Frank Sinatra. In fact, rumors swirled that Grace and Sinatra shared a secret love nest in the ultra-luxury French commune of Cap Ferrat, keeping a passionate, low-profile affair alive for several years. With both parents caught up in their own secret lives, the royal household was far from a warm, cozy home. Grace and Rainier had 3 children, Caroline, Albert, and Stephanie, but the kids grew up in an emotional desert. Princess Caroline later dropped a bombshell about her childhood, revealing that she and her brother Albert were actually raised by their nanny, Maureen. "When we were little, we were probably closer to our nanny than to our parents," Caroline admitted, recalling how she and her brother would dissolve into tears every single year when their beloved nanny left for her annual vacation. While Rainier was famously distant and cold to his children, young Prince Albert clung to his mother. He recognized the immense sacrifice she had made by uprooting her entire life for Monaco, later noting that he never once heard her complain. Rainier, on the other hand, spent his final years filled with parental guilt. He later confessed, My only regret is not being available enough to take care of my children during their tender years, and it is too late to make up for lost time. It didn't take long for the crushing weight of royal life to take a toll on Grace's mental health. The woman who once had the world at her feet sank into a quiet, simmering depression. She once bluntly told a reporter, "I don't expect to be happy, and I don't look for happiness." Grace was trapped. She had moved across the ocean to a traditional Mediterranean society that fiercely resisted change, and she was forced to navigate complex royal protocols while speaking only English in a French-speaking court. Years later, a young Princess Diana would meet Grace and instantly spot the invisible scars. Diana recalled, "I remember meeting Princess Grace and how wonderful and serene she was, but there was troubled water under her. I saw that." To make matters worse, the couple had absolutely zero privacy. When Grace married Rainier, Monaco wasn't the flawless, hyper-luxurious playground for billionaires that it is today. Biographers have described the Monaco of the 1950s as a total backwater, where the plumbing and electricity were completely outdated and the telephone lines barely worked. Yet the paparazzi swarmed the microstate like locusts. Grace desperately craved just a little bit of time alone with her husband, but the media circus never stopped. Eventually, the aggressive photographers targeted their children too. The situation turned so dangerous and suffocating that Princess Grace had to resort to extreme measures just to give her kids a normal life. She later revealed that her youngest daughter, Stephanie, literally had to hide in the trunk of the family car just to sneak off to her gymnastics classes without a convoy of paparazzi chasing them down the street. Despite the screaming fights, the mutual infidelities, and the suffocating lack of privacy, a burning question remains. Did Grace and Rainier actually love each other? Shortly before her tragic death, Grace actively tried to shut down the rumor mill. She complained to reporters that the media were constantly inventing fake divorces and imaginary scandals. For Grace, choosing to stay in Monaco wasn't just about duty. She had fully committed to the life and the family she created, wrapping herself in her role as a protective mother. And for all of Rainier's flaws and coldness, the ultimate proof of his love came after the music stopped. On September 14, 1982, the world stood still when Princess Grace tragically passed away at just 52 years old after suffering a devastating cerebral hemorrhage that caused her car to plunge off the cliffs of the Côte d'Azur. The prince was completely destroyed. Those closest to Rainier revealed that he never truly recovered from the catastrophic loss of his wife. He never remarried, choosing to spend the rest of his days mourning the Hollywood star who had turned his kingdom into a legend. His son, Prince Albert, confirmed that his father was permanently broken by the accident, stepping into his final years as a completely different man. In the end, Prince Rainier and Grace Kelly's marriage wasn't a perfect fairy tale, nor was it a total lie. It was a deeply flawed, intensely human love story, one filled with immense heartbreak, golden cages, and a bond that even the darkest secrets couldn't fully break. But the fragile peace they had finally built together was shattered in an instant on a winding mountain road. What began as a routine drive home transformed into a horrific nightmare, violently bringing the curtain down on Monaco's most famous era. The cliffside plunge, inside the horrific 1982 crash that changed Monaco forever. On the morning of September 13, 1982, Princess Grace and her 17-year-old daughter, Princess Stephanie, climbed into their British Rover 3500 and set out to drive from their summer home in Rock Angel, France, back to Monaco. It was supposed to be a routine trip. But while navigating the winding roads at Cap Dale, Princess Grace suffered a stroke behind the wheel. Terrified, young Stephanie desperately reached over and attempted to pull the handbrake to stop the vehicle. But it was too late. The car veered off the edge, tumbling more than 100 feet down an embankment, turning over repeatedly before bursting into flames at the bottom. The violence of the crash was horrific. Neither Grace nor her daughter were wearing seatbelts, and the impact flung the 52-year-old princess into the back seat. Because the passenger side door was completely smashed in, Stephanie had to be dragged out through the driver's door by rescuers. Both were rushed to a Monaco hospital with severe injuries. While Stephanie dealt with broken ribs, 3 cervical fractures, and a shattered collarbone, Grace was in critical condition, fighting for her life with a broken thigh bone, collarbone, and ribs. Tragically, as the night went on, Grace's health deteriorated and she suffered a second, massive brain hemorrhage. By September 14, 1982, the Monaco government released a devastating announcement stating that all therapeutic possibilities had been exceeded. The legendary Hollywood star turned princess was gone. For Prince Rainier III, this sudden tragedy was the final crushing blow to a relationship that had spent decades collapsing under the weight of secret miseries, mutual infidelities, and silent resentments. Long before that final plunge off the cliffs, Rainier had privately confessed a dark truth to a close confidant, admitting that he deeply regretted marrying his Hollywood queen. He felt he had traded his privacy and peace of mind for a non-stop media circus and a wife whose immense star power completely eclipsed his own. He had grown increasingly bitter over the years, feeling that his marriage was less about true love and more about a calculated business arrangement to save Monaco's failing economy. To his close friends, he lamented that Grace's global fame reduced him to a mere background character in his own country. Every time he tried to assert his authority, it sparked explosive fights behind closed doors. Rainier openly confessed that the constant headaches, the media intrusion, and the total loss of his personal freedom made him deeply regret the day he ever stepped up to the altar with Hollywood royalty. Yet, when the end came so abruptly, the reality of his loss hit Rainier with brutal force. Prince Albert II recalled the absolute chaos of that fateful morning, remembering how he was simply having breakfast when his father walked in, pale and shaken, delivering the news that they had to rush to the hospital. As the sun set and the medical team delivered the final grim prognosis, Rainier's world completely collapsed. Despite the explosive fights, the separate lives, and the immense regrets he harbored throughout their union, Rainier suffered from a broken heart for the rest of his days. Albert explained that his father was deeply affected and was never quite the same man after the accident, permanently retreating into a shell of grief and refusing to ever remarry. Stephanie, too, remained completely haunted. Still recovering from her severe injuries in her hospital bed, she was unable to attend her own mother's 75-minute funeral service. She spent years carrying the traumatic weight of being trapped in that burning wreckage, deeply pained by the fact that she couldn't pull her mother to safety or change the tragic outcome. The family had to rely entirely on each other, leaning on close friends to slowly wade through the heavy fog of grief. When the day of the funeral arrived, hundreds of high-profile mourners gathered at the cathedral where Grace and Rainier had married in 1956. The pews were filled with European royalty, First Lady Nancy Reagan, Princess Diana, and Grace's old-to-catch-a-thief co-star, Cary Grant. Hours after the formal service, a second Mass was held just for Monaco's 28,000 residents to pay their respects before Grace was finally laid to rest in the royal crypt behind the main altar of the cathedral. Even though her life ended in tragedy and her marriage was a complicated, golden cage filled with mutual disappointment, Princess Grace left behind a magnificent, long-lasting legacy that still captures the world's imagination today. Best known as one of director Alfred Hitchcock's ultimate blonde muses, she successfully transitioned her artistic discipline into powerful philanthropic work. She spent her royal years drastically improving Monaco's arts institutions and founded Amade Mondiale, a thriving nonprofit dedicated to protecting children worldwide, which her children, Princess Caroline and Prince Albert, still proudly run today. Immediately after her passing, a grieving Prince Rainier channeled his pain into honoring his wife, founding the Princess Grace Foundation USA and creating the Princess Grace Awards to fund and mentor emerging young artists. Decades later, Albert reflected on his father's deep commitment to carrying on Grace's passion, noting how meaningful it is to see her desire to help young talent survive well into the future. Her timeless style also continues to shape modern fashion, highlighted by a massive 2007 exhibition where her children displayed her personal outfits, including her famous wedding dress, a costume from her final film High Society, and the iconic mint satin gown she wore to accept her 1955 Oscar for the Country Girl. Prince Rainier eventually passed away in 2005 at the age of 81, carrying his heavy burden of secret regrets and profound loss straight to his grave. Yet, despite the hidden drama and the silent marital warfare that plagued their union, her spirit ultimately triumphed. She served as the ultimate ambassador for the principality, using her generosity of heart to charm the world and build the legendary luxury playground we know today, proving that while her marriage was filled with regret, she played her final royal role to absolute perfection. Were you a fan of Grace Kelly movies? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.